Welcome back, guys. Welcome back to a new video. In today's video, we will be discussing the iceberg that is of Classic Nations. Yes, a game I don't actually, make videos on in my YouTube channel. However, I just decided for today, why not make something new that I don't typically make on a daily basis. So, in this instance, we will be discussing the rabbit hole, or well, the iceberg that is of Classic Nations. So basically, the game is a modern recreation by LNQ Studios of the old nations originally developed by Sebas and Nolus, and continued by Alger, as your goal is to create a country, manage its resources, expand, participate in wars, and become the #1 world power. In Classic Nations, wealth is one of the 4 types of resources that can be used to either improve/increase the economy of your said nation, and essentially works as currency used for purchasing land and for expansion, or it can also be used for investing in oil and war charges to increase your nation's strength. Diplomacy allows the players to engage intervention with other players through a means of declaring war on a said nations or by spying on them to view their resources. However, the spying feature is a game pass that by now would require paying Robux in order to actually use it. Otherwise, the only purpose diplomacy would serve is to view on other countries that you wish to wage war with or to view current status. Basic war knowledge, which typically refers to the basics of waging war with others, placing down your army or different troops to fend off against your foe, and invading deep into said territory unless they just happen to disband, which will unfortunately sadly halt the war into an end. Achievements in Classic Nations are one of the core components of the game, serving as a way to tell the player of each milestone they reach through conquering/expanding said land and gaining a higher population, thus giving access to a variety of things, and such achievements will be listed as shown below. Settlement. This is when you reach 1 population, unlocking specials such as diplomacy and trade, increasing distance limit to about 96 studs, and increasing paint purchase limited to about 150 wealth. Tribe 1. This requires population of about 5,000 and unlocking auto resources of about 1 wealth per second. Unlocking specials such as waging war with others and increasing in distance limited by 120 studs. Tribe 2. This is one required you to have at least 10k population, unlocking auto resources such as 1 research per second, unlocking troops like archers and warriors, increasing distance limit to about 122 studs, and increasing paint purchase limit to about 200 wealth. Kingdom 1. For this, you will need about 50,000 population, unlocking auto resources 2 wealth per second, unlocking troops such as knights and horsemen, increasing distance limit of 256 studs, and also an increased paint purchase limited to just about 250 units of wealth. Kingdom 2 requires having 100,000 population, unlocking auto resources of about 2 research per second, unlocking troops like gladiators and catapults, increasing distance limit of about 384 studs, and an increase in paint purchase, limiting increase to about 300 wealth. Empire 1. Becoming an empire requires 250,000 population, unlocking auto resources of just 1 oil per second, unlocking specials like Antarctica and the supply drops that come with it for the very first time, increasing distance limit of about 512 studs, and increasing paint purchase limited to just about 350 wealth. Empire 2. This one will require just about roughly 500,000 population, unlocking auto resources of about 2 oil and 3 research per second, unlocking troops like Vikings and cannons, increasing distance limited to just about 768 studs this time around, and increasing paint purchase limited to 400 units of wealth. Republic 1. This will require reaching 1 million population, unlocking auto resources such as 3 units of wealth per second and 4 units of research per second, unlocking troops like soldiers and tanks, increasing distance limit by 1,025 studs, and increasing paint purchase limited to 500 wealth. Republic 2. This will need just about 5 million population, no biggie, unlocking auto resources of 4 units of wealth and 5 research per second, unlocking troops like helicopters and jets, increasing distance limit of 1,536 studs, and increasing paint purchase limited to 600 units of wealth. World power. Lastly, becoming a world power will require the need of having 10 million population, unlocking auto resources such as 5 wealth and 3 oil per second, increasing distance limit to about 2,048 studs, and lastly, increasing paint purchase limited to 700 units of wealth. Outlining will typically refer to when a player is painting or filling in some newer regions of territory within a thin line that forms a sort of outline with a huge empty spot that's unfilled at the center while being covered by a line that, as the name suggests, outlines it. And this can also be seen when outlining someone else's country, which in general is against the rules, and for those can fortunately report these types of players at the discretion of mod staff. Here are some examples of those as shown below. And as you can clearly tell, some of these examples go from pretty alarming to not very alarming, but still requires, something to be dealt with. Webbing will refer to when a player makes a vast chain of narrow lines filled in by the player, leaving a huge chunk of land being exposed for any other player to fill in, which can lead to outlining or even full-on blocking other players from ever being able to expand, as mentioned earlier ago, which is yet against the rules for any of you unfortunate players. Just report these types of trolls who break the rules without a care in the world, or better yet, ignore them altogether. And here are some examples as shown below. So as you can clearly tell, it's pretty much what you would expect out of this type of situation. Blocking refers to when a player will fill/paint in a line that surrounds any player's nation, or really a circle or something that will typically block you from expanding, thus not allowing them to fill in and expand any further. Hence the name blocking, as it blocks any players who are unlucky from expanding any further, which could lead to either the player acknowledging their actions and deciding to wage war on the user who cannot expand any further, which is left vulnerable, if you know what I mean, or 2, will most likely just ignore after and continue playing as if nothing had happened. And these are the types of players that make me really mad. And here are some notable examples as shown below. So as you can tell, here's an example of me making an example of getting blocked by 2 other nations. Or it could, be one, like as shown here. Big, huge line that blocks this player from expanding into the rest of Siberia. Country info, as the name suggests, will allow you to view the information about your own country, and this is useful because it allows you to change the name of your country as long as it doesn't get tagged out for whatever reason. Building or selecting your own flag, setting up the type of ideology you want to choose, and overall just setting up your own country and ideology, making it extremely useful for if the player wants to make their country within the game as they so choose. WPO, or wealth per oil value, is basically when exchanging wealth for a certain unit of oil, thus giving you more oil at the cost of the amount of wealth you spend. I know, it's crazy, right? And additionally, in some instances, this can be used to randomly increase the global oil value, which has its benefits such as dropping the cost for filling in more land, increasing stud limits, and increasing paint purchase. In classic nations, there are game passes that you can use that are essentially pay to win, but one of them that stands out are spies, as they are typically used to try and view any player's resources that normally wouldn't be possible to view, which can all be done through diplomacy. But this, like many of the game passes, has its downside, as you will only be able to have one spy per use, which can either end up being successful or will fail miserably while getting caught in doing so. Like all these other game passes, it requires spending Robux. And if it does fail, you have to wait 15 minutes just to reuse it again. At that point, you might as well just go into another server to try and reuse it and hope for the best. Almost like gambling, if you think about it. Disasters and research. This refers to how every now and then disasters will naturally occur at any moment within a random location at the map, ranging from meteor showers, plagues, wildfires, and even full-on cyclones, which most, if not all, will either leave a huge mark of your territory now gone, crippling your country, or will just cause a few studs to be unfilled, or even decreasing the population of your said country, which is extremely annoying because then it will make you no longer be able to use certain troops. But anyways, as I digress, by a substantial amount, causing it to be quite difficult to actually heal from the said damages, but still manageable and also possible. However, all of this can easily be avoided if you have research, or at least enough research that is, which in-game represents as a piece of paper. Once you start collecting it, you can eventually start to prevent any disasters from further tearing down the infrastructure of your country, as their sole purpose is to be used in the occasion that a disaster spawns in. Special flags, or as it's named in-game, custom flags, are a way to set up your country with the accessibility of putting on any type of decal ID that suits best in representing your nation's flag to your liking, which is kind of self-explanatory because of the name and the way it works as a whole. However, unfortunately, this cannot be accessed by default as it is unlocked unless you purchase it within the Game Pass store in order to actually use it, which is kind of goofy on its own right, but I won't judge as it does do a good job at producing quite a lot of Robux for the creators of Classic Nations. Jets and helicopters refer to the troops which can be unlocked by achieving a population of 5 million, which are the most powerful types of troops, being able to easily take land from others during war and easily crushing hordes of tanks and soldiers to a certain degree. Also, originally you were required to have total world power by gaining at least 10 million population, but due to recent updates it was changed, and probably for the better, as it isn't very easy to get 10 million population, especially as it gets increasingly difficult just to reach that much as resources are needed to do so, and the amount to indeed get 10 million was nearly impossible, hence the change, which if you ask me is the best change by far. Nukes and biological weapons are one of the game passes you can purchase with Robux, so if you have some Robux lying around, this might come in handy, and this is because, for one, nukes can be used during war times, which is especially helpful for if you are looking to blow up a horde of troops in a specific region, and two, biological weapons, much like nukes, will cause the opponents to lose land, as it will make a much smaller radius of land gain wherever you so please. All while gas particles start slowly appearing within that said radius, effectively killing any of the player's troops and decreasing their health while doing so. Okay, so this is yet another game pass that, as the name suggests, will give you +2 troop slots in an event of a war, so that you can have more room for other additional towers that you may or may not want to place down and use against your said opponent while waging war with them. And as shown here, this is an exact example of what I mean by having extra 2 slots, which is kind of useful if you think about it. Alliances are a way of creating and setting up a type of team for a set player to become part of, essentially allowing for one to become allied with other players, as shown by a screenshot I took over here. The in-game browser can be found in-game, as the name suggests, while doing so will reveal the main menu containing a list of all the currently available servers that are up, while also including a filter in order to view other types of servers based on land, server activity, and the current overall population, which really helps to more easily navigate a certain type of server you're interested in joining. LNQ Studio is the team of devs in which are the ones who created and are responsible for the game's existence, aka Classic Nations, and an abundance of other projects, mostly handled by the leading developer Vlado, such as Area 95, Better Voice, Identity Theft, and also the soon-to-be Nations Remastered. The not-so-basic war knowledge is a less abstract view on war knowledge in Classic Nations, starting off with learning how to declare war with others by interacting with the diplomacy, and from there on, it gives you the option to declare war on a single user if there are any, and to eventually even with alliances. And additionally, in order to actually do something in battle, you must first collect and gather resources like wealth, oil, and war charges. Research will be the most important of them all, as resources decrease when organizations are taken away because, well, you're waging war on someone, meaning that you will need to keep a substantial and colossal amount of resources in order to actually keep using your troops during battle. Otherwise, they literally remove the ability to even place down troops if you have 0 resources while being in the midst of a war. This is that one unique feature that allows players to gain 200 plus starting wealth when joining the said group of Classic Nations, which is quite the advantage over other players who haven't yet joined the group. Classic Nations being obviously made within a group known as LNQ Studio, unsurprisingly also has an official Discord server, which is just one of the other forms of media the community thrives in, which is great for gaining a wider audience outside of Roblox. That's really just about it for this one. The user Vlado is the creator of the team LNQ Studio and the main leading developer of the game Classic Nations, alongside a couple of other games he has made along the way, so basically, he's the owner of Classic Nations in a nutshell. World Power are users who have an increasingly large country with at least 10 million population or much more in order to actually achieve. And some example of these said nations can be seen when joining a server and seeing that almost the entire world has been swallowed up by world powers, such as these screenshots, which is quite the crazy grinding that most likely takes hours on end just to achieve, which is crazy what players would do, as shown by this other screenshot with at least maybe 2 other world powers and another one where there's very clearly only one world power and alongside a much more smaller inferior nation. In Classic Nations, there is the feature that allows you to go to Antarctica, and this feature is essentially important because it means achieving Empire 1, requiring at least 250k population or more, and also when actually gaining access to this barren wasteland unsuitable for increasing population, you will then be given an easier way to quickly and steadily grind for research, and the every now and then occasional Antarctic drops, which will randomly give you a set amount of resources, either being wealth, oil, war charges, or even research. The level award system is something you get for whenever you are expanding your nation's borders to an ever so increasing size at specific milestones, like reaching the required population for a kingdom or for even an empire, that will thus render as unlocking and accessing new features that were once previously locked, which, if you can recall from, we've made a detailed analysis of such achievements earlier in the video. Nations 2 refers to the long-lost sequel of Nations Update, with its only mentions appearing in the game's description. As of now, the project is inactive and the developers who worked on it have been terminated. However, there is some truth to its existence. Originally, the game was developed by Sebas and Nolus before being continued by another developer, Alger, ultimately leading to the Nations Update. This, in turn, paved the way for the modern-day recreation by LNQ Studio known as Classic Nations, which many consider to be the true sequel. This is why it is often referred to as Classic Nations. And here's a mentioning of Nations 2 as shown by the description of the game Nations Update. So this one refers to the many records that players have tried to reach when conquering the max amount of land and thus competing with any other players doing the exact same in other servers for the sake of having a population once thought to be impossible to reach. B-Shield Explorer refers to the tool that LNQ Studio uses for moderation purposes, specifically in Classic Nations, which is useful for mods who are going out of their way to moderate users that casually break the rules. Better Voice is one of the few side projects of LNQ Studio developed by Vlado. It has been in development for quite some time, which currently stands as a publicly playable game best known as one of the top social hangout experiences, although be it a tad bit obscure. Kitsune resigning is referring to one of the mods in the LNQ server that's most likely referring to the fact that he was more well known than other moderators within the server. Aside from that, I'm not really sure what else I'm supposed to say or mention about this guy, so yeah. Basically, there's not much information about this other than that he's a moderator, so yeah, I'm assuming that's what this criteria is saying. Otherwise, please let me know in the comments below. Donation ranking is a way to support developers by donating a set amount of Robux, and these donations ranks can be found via leaderboard, and from there you can click on the little tab that shows how much you have donated to the game as shown here in Classic Nations. REG, or just tournaments, standing for Roblox Entertaining Gathering, is where developers, fans, and others alike all come and join together to attend live events, usually hosted at RDC or any other types of virtual concerts and events relating to that matter. But considering that this is a Classic Nations iceberg, this is most likely referring to the fact that every now and then there are special events live that are being hosted for the community and fans of Classic Nations to come join via the server here in Discord. And again, I'm not too sure if that's what this criteria is referring to, and if it is or if it's not, please let me know in the comments below. Moving on. Yes, so basically this is pretty self-explanatory in a nutshell. When searching up anything on YouTube relating to Classic Nations, sometimes the search results will typically suck at finding anything that is actually related and can come up with the most random videos as the top results. Either that or likely have videos not directly relating to Classic Nations but just Roblox as a whole, or well, overall. In some instances, developers of Classic Nations will announce test servers for those who are eager to see what new updates lie for Classic Nations or for the soon-to-be Nations Remastered, allowing certain users to view the experience that might not ever release for months on end, which gives you a greater idea for what is to come for the future, or even the nearby future. Identity theft is yet again another type of project made by Vlado, in which currently stands as unfinished or well unplayable as of now, and unfortunately has little to any information regarding its premise or what it's about other than it having an announcement channel within the LNQ server as shown here, which you know, the server in Discord, that is. Cinematic mode is one of the game passes within Classic Nations that allows you to view your nations or really any other existing nations within a wider and much more advanced point of view, which is perfect for taking screenshots from the far to see the state of your country or other players' countries. Nations Remastered is a direct remake of Classic Nations and continues the long saga that is of the Nations games. In Roblox, of course. Okay, so hey, future me real quick. So basically, I could not find a lot of information on this criteria other than, well, there being a channel named after Nations Remastered, but otherwise this is basically just nothing more than lost media, and there was hardly anything of it ever made. So yeah, unfortunately I couldn't find much. Anyway, moving on. To sum it down, this basically means that when a player wages war with someone else in Antarctica and places troops, that will thus result in your troops moving forward into Antarctic oceans, which changes the character sprite from a tiny little figure into a tiny little boat, hence the name, the Antarctic Boat. However, considering this video took me about almost up until 2025 to make, which is several months, this might no longer be the case. But anyways, moving on. Alger City was one of the main capitals of North America, located somewhere in Canada, and is essentially useful for garnering a heck ton of extra population, which steadily stacks up the more you expand your nation. However, this unique capital doesn't actually exist in real life, and was made by Alger as an Easter egg, based on its name, for a while until it met its unfortunate doom, sadly being removed by Vlado within the following updates. Tsar Bomba is one of the many other game passes I've already mentioned. However, despite this, it's one of the only few that is unique, as it's essentially a doomsday weapon ready to kill every single country within a said server, as it will literally cause everyone to automatically disband as a flash of white light covers your screen for a brief while, all for the cost of only about 9,000 Robux. Additionally, here's an example of such doomsday event happening. As you can tell, this is what it looks like based on the few screenshots as shown here and here. And yes, this can only be used once per server. Kinda a sad thing if you think about it. So basically, in Classic Nations, there's obviously all the continents. However, in this instance, for the most part, it's basically inaccurate and scuffed up. More specifically, North America is scuffed up. And this means that there is a lack of accuracy between how North America actually looks like. And an example of what this section of the iceberg is referring to here is an image of North America in its true form. Looks a bit different than how it's depicted in Classic Nations, doesn't it? But then again, this is just what the criteria is saying. Not trying to argue any of the facts, but I digress. The criteria highlights that large numbers of Vikings are more effective than smaller armies of soldiers, I assume, maybe, during a set battle between another player. While soldiers may have advantages in a one-to-one combat, Vikings and larger hordes can easily overpower soldiers due to their strengths in numbers. This makes Vikings' armies superior in large-scale warfare, which might not be a fair comparison between Vikings and soldiers, but this is strictly referring to how Vikings are better than soldiers after all, or at least it is within the making of this video. I don't know, I'm just saying. That's most likely what this criteria is referring to. So the one-time use of game passes from supply drops, as said by the name, is referring to the specific game pass that is limited by a one-time only usage, deriving from supply drops. This Classic Nations question mark badge is an extremely rare and unobtainable type of achievement that is explained as the following based on the description of the badge itself. How can the world end twice? Or is it even ending from being too bright to becoming too dark? I don't know. However, despite what it says, unfortunately this cannot be achieved by any normal means and will probably stay that way for a pretty long time. This criteria is talking about the badge that one can achieve by doing specific requirements in-game, like gaining world power, establishing your very own nation for the first time, or even by getting access to Antarctica and many more. Clans are a chill and competitive group of players within Classic Nations. Their goal is to create a community of players who can band together to dominate servers and have fun while doing so. This competitive type of clan is in no way endorsed by LNQ Studio or its staff team. Submarines are a now defunct tower that previously had existed in Classic Nations, and its former purpose on paper was to essentially function as a troop that can go on water. However, in game it ended up never happening, only remaining as a locked troop that only admins had access to until its inevitable redesign, in which it would be replaced by helicopter troops. And this can be seen as shown by the following, which as you can tell is basically the only surviving image in which depicts the submarine. Beyond that, there's nothing really else. So yeah, moving on. Classic Nations Wiki is a Wikipedia made within the Wiki fandom, which tells you all that there is to know about Classic Nations, such as a few minor things like managing your economy, expanding land, participating in wars, and becoming the #1 world power, and alongside some obscure things regarding the game. Not really sure what this criteria is referring to or about, as I've already mentioned achievements, so most likely this is either referring to a badge that no longer exists or some other we've already gone over that's unachievable. Admin troops are either unachievable troops that didn't quite make it out, thus remaining as a developer command of some sort, or can simply be referring to spawning in available troops using commands built in for the admins to enjoy. Lastly, the August 12th protests were planned events during the first major painting update, which got a completely revamped system after some community backlash due to some difficulty adjusting to the update. In response to all the backlash, Vlado announced a new poll for the said update, and well, the community only grew even more and more devastatingly, catastrophically closer towards causing a revolution of some sorts, which ended up in a server lockdown for several days, thus triggering the spark that began and ignited the August 12th protests, as shown by the said screenshots provided to me by Red Power 37. Also credit to Red Power 37, if I haven't already mentioned that before, who helped give me more information about the given criteria. Beyond this, not much else is known after being wiped clean and lost to time, apart from some exceptions such as others who have more insight and knowledge on what had occurred during that time. However, I'm not so sure, I can't really talk much about it nor ask of it, after being told by Red Power 37 that there's a good chance these users aren't comfortable with sharing such information about these movements. And finally, we enter to the last criteria, which was finished. So if you enjoyed what you like, please subscribe. I might make a follow-up video fixing my many errors I probably made in this video. This took me almost like a year to make. Half a year, I'd say. Yeah, half a year. Anyways, yeah, I don't know, subscribe or don't. See ya.